Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel and big hello out there to all the Final Fantasy TCG players, as today we're going to be covering Opus IX and some of the standout cards that are going to hopefully come out of that set and see what sort of things we're going to look forward to when it comes to the sets released next weekend. We're having pre-releases this weekend, so if people have already had a little bit of a chance to test some of these cards out, and I'd like to hear from you all as to what you guys have had from your pre-release kits that you're really kind of shocked by, things that you think are going to be great that perhaps people didn't think about, or things that have been really hyped up that you didn't think were that great, so that we can, as a community, kind of build up an idea of where the set is going and how it fits into the game and what cards we're going to be looking forward to seeing. I did already do a big old community stream the other day for Opus IX, going through every single card in the set, and it's a massively long stream video. I think it's about 3 hours long, so instead of uploading it to YouTube, instead I'm doing this video, which is going to be a highlights of the set in general, and I'm going to leave a link in the description box below for any of you that want to see that full stream, so that you can get an idea from all of us, so people in the chat and myself, as to what sort of things we like from the set going forward. As always, don't forget to check out all of the social links in the description box below, including my Facebook, my Twitter, my Discord, where you can share out deck ideas and talk about particular cards after you've seen this video or the stream, my Twitch channel, where the aforementioned stream comes from, so I definitely encourage you guys to check that out, as I've started to do streaming a lot more regularly now, and that's going to be a really great place to come and chat to me and come and chat to the community in general. And my Patreon page if you want access to my videos earlier than everybody else, and a little extra benefits for you from that. So as you can see here, I've changed the format of how I present these videos a little bit for you all, because I think it's actually going to be a lot easier in order to show you guys cards in singularly, and instead of them kind of fading in and out of the background, I'm actually using the official Final Fantasy TCG website, so you guys can see every card there, but I'm actually only going to highlight certain ones. So we're going to get started with Fire, and I think that one of the cards that I'm really enjoying looking at this set is actually Ace. So Ace is going to open up the cadet archetype a great amount, and I really hope that the cadet archetype becomes actually viable, because it's something that I get asked on this channel all the time. When are you going to make a cadet deck? How do cadets work? How do I make the cadets good? And I just until now I'm like, I don't know. They're very difficult to make right. There's a lot going on with them. They're across 3 different colors. They're very sporadic and they're very inconsistent. But there are 2 particular cards, and they're both in Fire, that I think help them out a great deal. I think Ace is one of them. He provides an EX burst that's offensively geared, so it's kind of like a Furion, but with a much bigger body. And then when he comes into play, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and grab 2 cadets from it. So honestly, I think that this will enable cadets to have a bigger consistency rate. This blows the light Ace out of the water, if you ask me. I think he's one of the best cadets we've got. And alongside him, we also have another really strong cadet in King, because King will allow you to have an offensive pressure where by paying 2 CP into it, as long as it was a Class 0 cadet that you discarded to pay for it, and it can be any coloured Class 0 cadet as well, which is really interesting. And he's got a decent come into play effect with come into play, choose a forward, it can't block this turn. And then, so in combination with 7 from Opus 3, you'll have a really nice kind of way of opening up your opponent so that you're a wall breaker, because 7 makes it so that all of your guys can't be blocked, all of your cadets can't be blocked by anything that costs 4 or more. So if King's there to help make it so that they're blockable by even less guys, then you could just win the game off of that alone. And I actually just think that these 2 in particular, there are a couple of other cadets in the set that I really like, but I think that Ace and King are 2 big power plays that deck sorely needed. I think a card that has flown under a lot of people's radar in Fire, because again, a lot of people, when they go into the set, are going, oh, Fire's got nothing again. And I actually disagree. I think Fire got some really nice toys this set. I think that Gaius and Ritatin, who's his partner in crime, are actually really strong. So we already have quite a lot of FF14 forwards in Fire that are worth playing. So you have Lise, which is the first one that comes to mind. It's a power booster across the board, and it's just useful. It's a great Phoenix target. It's just good. You also have Hien, which I don't particularly love Hien as a character or as a card. I think it's a perfectly average card. However, I think having access to Gesetsu, because it's the only 3 CP EX burst searcher that Fire really has, is worthwhile. You also have Emperor Xander from Opus 2, all the way back in Opus 2. People forget that he's an FF14 character and not an FF3 character. So, Gaius has an EX Burst search ability, which is great because Fire actually has quite a lot of those now, because you have Marsh, you have Gaius, you have Ikasetsu, you have Mont Blanc for Marsh if you want it. So it'll search for Ritatin, or if you're happy to go into like a Fire Lightning Garleans deck, you could run Nero and Livia as well. And I'd be really interested to see, like, I'll quickly highlight Livia because I don't think the card is particularly good, but if somebody can make her work, I'll be really happy. But not only that, but when Gaius or any category 14 forward comes into play, choose a forward your opponent controls and deal it 3k. This is really strong. Like, this second ability is really strong. Back in the day, people played Opus 1 Furion because when he came into play, he dealt damage to something. Gaius makes all of your FF14 forwards do that, including himself. Like, he does it when he comes in. So if you're in, like, four backups, you can trade him in for a Ritatin, and then kill a guy main phase 2 during combat, because it is like, this makes it so that your opponent is a lot less inclined to block you at any given point, because you might just do the extra 3k and finish something. And it's a searcher on an EX burst as well. It's boosted by Lise, who complements Gaius. It just seems like a really nice synergistic play. And then looking at Ritatin as well, Ritatin can only be played if you have a category 14 forward. It can only be played from your hand if you have a category 14 forward. This means that you can use a 4 CP Phoenix to resurrect him from the dead and deal 2k to your opponent's board, and then he's a 7k Brave attacker for 2. This is probably the strongest target you could get outside of Leo and a massive load of characters that you can get with a 4 CP Phoenix. The S ability is fairly nonchalant. No one really likes it's not going to get used all that much, but the fact that if you have a Gaius out that's his searcher and he can deal 3k when he comes in for 2, it's just nice, you know. And the fact that you can have a 1-2 punch where you can play Gaius and Ritatin, kill off a Layla and a Viking, then you kind of have that really nice ward against mono water as well. I mean, water has always been a problem for Fire because it has so many forwards and it builds up advantage so quickly, and the removal suite in Fire is actually a little bit weird. But having access to cards like this, I think could actually make their job a lot easier. Now, I'm not going to go over every card in the set because, as I said, I want to keep to a decent amount of time for the video, and if you want to see everything, check out the stream link. But I did want to have a quick look at Nail, who is the box topper promo and the other legend for Fire. Nail is a really strange card. Her ceiling is incredible. Like, if you hit 2 forwards with Nail, she is a 2 CP 9k with removal capabilities, which is extraordinary. But if you miss with Nail, which, I mean, I never like leaving things to chance. When I was doing the stream, I sat there and I was like, I actually really like this card. I think it's amazing. But now that I've had a bit more time to come away from it, I'm not so sure about it. I think that she's got a lot of potential, and as I say, the ceiling for her is insane. Like, a 2 CP 9k that can kill a guy at any given time, I like. A 6 CP 9k guy that can have capabilities to kill things by removing my backups, little less happy with that. So I'd like to see, I'm not sure how much this card is going to get played. I thought perhaps it definitely would when I was doing the stream, but after having a little bit more time to look at her, I'm not all that sure. But I did want to quickly highlight her because she was the other Fire legend in the set. So now we're going to move over into Ice, and Ice has got some really nice things this set. I think they're a little bit under the radar again. I think that the big thing with this set is a lot of people have underestimated a lot of cards in the set, so I really want to see where people go with them. The first card I want to point out, however, that is almost definitely going to get played is this thing. Zalera 1 CP killer guy. That is all you need to know, and it kills pretty much every relevant forward. Like, the fact that it can kill a 7-drop means it can kill Sephiroths. The fact that it can kill 5-drops means it can kill Bartzes, it can kill Sid Olsteins, it can kill Clouds, it can kill all sorts of things that are way more high costing than Zalera is, which is extraordinary value. At worst, it's going to still deal with a lot of forwards. Like, 3 CP forwards seem to be really popular anyway, so Zalera might actually force people to start using more 4 CP forwards in general, just because it's the only thing realistically that Zalera can't kill. And then I actually quite like the FF8 engine. I don't think it necessarily is going to be as strong as the FF6 engine, but I think that Quistis' value is ridiculous. Like, if you have enough cards to make her worthwhile, she's incredibly good. She's 4 CP EX bursts, search for a category 8 forward. So you have Squall, Laguna, Rinoa in ice. Then you have Zell in fire. And Kyros in fire, which is another one that would be really interesting to use. You even have Cypher in lightning. So you have lots of options for her to grab. But obviously, if you do grab something, she's a 2CP 7k that has an Anthem ability. Like, so she can boost Squall's power and Zell's power by 1,000. And Cypher's, actually. And then Zell having 1,000 power means that he's more likely to kill more things when he comes in. And then it's just nice. And her S ability, if you're playing the right deck for this, could be absolutely backbreaking. People were running Ice Earth and using Vanille for her S ability that looks at the top card of the deck. There's no reason why, if people are using her for that, that they're not going to use Quistis for that as well. Because Quistis' S ability is 1 CP, or 3 CP if you count her, the extra copy of her, to potentially break multiple forwards and draw a card. So it's 1 CP, break a bunch of guys. Because you're not going to do it if you know you can't do it. You'd use something like Yule to be able to make sure, or Yuna, to make sure that you could do it. And I think that, I honestly think Quistis is really strong. And then Squall is also really good, because the more FF8 guys you have out, you have a potentially 1 CP 8k Snow, 9k if you have Quistis, 10k if you have Duke Larg. You know, that's just in ice alone. So if you've got other buffers, Squall could be really scary really quickly. However, Sellers does very similar things in ice, in FF6 Fire and Ice, and so there's that argument to be made. But I do think that Squall has potential. So if you're a big FF8 fan, and I know there are a lot of you out there, because again, people have been clamoring and asking me to make an FF8 deck profile for eons at this point, I actually now think it's viable. And one of the main reasons for that is this Rinoa. They've just not printed a bad Rinoa. They're all good, and this is the problem, because you can't run the 3 CP Rinoa that searches for FF8 forwards because all of the forward versions of her are so good. This Rinoa makes it so that there's a 2 CP ice forward that your opponent has to deal with, because you can imagine, like, for example, you have a Rinoa out and you play a Squall, so you get all 3 of the abilities, you already have a Squall out, sorry, and then you play an FF8 forward, say a Zell. You can then give Zell 1,000 power in First Strike, so that his damage dealing ability is now relevant in May Phase 1, because your opponent's not going to want to block him at that point. Or you can freeze a guy and then have Squall dull it. Or you can, if you get Laguna and then search Squall, you just get loads and loads of value. So you could dull one guy, then freeze another. And if you're playing Fire and Ice, then you should have methods of getting haste anyway. So you'll have Belias, even like the new Belias if you've taken damage, the old Belias, Goblin, Sage. There's loads of ways of giving haste. So Fire and Ice FF8 might actually be quite good. There's actually a bunch of cards in Ice that I could sit there and talk about. I think Soryu, the Ice Legend, the Ice Dragon Legend, is actually very powerful. It's so scary that you have to deal with it the turn it comes out. It has 2 things, or 3 things that are majorly going for it. It has 1 and 2 are kind of tied together. It has an EX Burst, which can give you advantage in Ice. And it can continually do so the longer it stays on the board. If your opponent doesn't kill this, you are drawing cards in Ice, and that is not okay. Your opponent should not be allowed to draw Ice cards, because the more cards they have, the more likely they have to get rid of your cards, and then they're still going to be able to keep theirs, and they're just going to win the game off of it. Not only that, but this now gives Ice an unconditional way of breaking a forward. It doesn't have to be dull, it doesn't have to be frozen. Discard 3 Ice cards, kill a guy. That's really powerful. Discard an Ice card, choose a character and freeze it. Also opens up a bizarrely large amount of capabilities just to basically make your opponent skip the next turn. Imagine this sat next to an Orphan. Do you have to kill Soryu first? Because if you don't, Orphan's just going to freeze things continuously. Soryu is going to be generating card advantage. Soryu could even just freeze your opponent's back row entirely so they skip their next turn. It's insane. You have to kill it the second it comes out. It doesn't have any come into play effect, but it'll put the fear of God in your opponent. And then I've also been looking at this guy. Ghosts, like anyone who's played Magic knows that things that can just resurrect themselves from the dead repeatedly are usually very, very strong. Gravecrawler was I'm going into Magic terms here, but Gravecrawler was an example of that, and that guy couldn't block. This is a brave Gravecrawler that can block, and opens up an entirely new, there's a deck archetype I really want to explore, and I think it'll be one of the first deck lists I put up. Because everyone's been so concentrated on Fire and Ice FF6, and this makes that deck even better, because all you guys in there are so cheap, and this will enable Lock more easily, this will enable Sellers more easily. It'll also open up an Ice-Water archetype, because this will guarantee that Strago can go off. So you just get loads of bodies, loads of removal, and there's just loads of potential for an FF6 engine, and it's all on the back of this guy. And the S ability is not even bad, because if you're running more than one Ghost, you'll remove this one from the game in order to have a removal piece, again, unconditionally, and then the card you discarded for the S effect is now in your break zone so that you can resurrect it. It's just a really good card, and like turn 2 even. Turn 2, it now opens up the possibility of having a lock play turn 2 and 2 backups, because you just discard one for a 2CP FF6 backup, of which there are many now, then an ice one, and then turn 2, dull 1, play Ghost, discard, or you play, sorry, you'd have to play 2 backups. So discard 2, play 2 backups, dull one of them, play Ghost, dull and discard, play Lock. And then it's like, the pressure is now on, and there is like not many pressure plays stronger than that in the game currently. And then the last card I want to talk about is actually Lock. Because this, if you're not playing an FF6 engine, this needs to be in your ice deck. Like, definitely. When it enters the field, choose a card type. So, forward, backup, monster, summon. Turn over a card on top of, one at a time onto the top of your deck until you get one of those cards. This card is never bad. Even if you're at 5 backups, you're probably running Kuja in an ice deck. Break them, and then play a Lock after it, and then go, oh, I need another backup. Oh, I need another forward. Oh, I'm only running 3 Glacier Labalus in my Ice Earth deck. Let me go and grab one. It's like, there's so much potential. And turn 1, it's amazing. Turn 1, you play Lock, go backup, and you just search another backup. It's so good. The only problem with it is that its name is Lock, so FF6 won't want to run it because the forward is so good. But even then, I would argue with it, honestly. I think this card is that good, it could even be... It could contend with the other Lock, but... I mean, that's probably going too far. But I think this card is really strong. Now, for once, Wind didn't get a huge amount this set, but the stuff it did get is scary, and it is worth highlighting. So when I say it didn't get much, it didn't get a large number of really strong playable cards, but there are some very interesting ones here. The first one we'll talk about is going to be Yasmat. This is going to get played. Like, people really questioned it at the beginning because it's 9 CP, but it's just really good. Like, maybe it's certainly in Wind / other color decks. Like Wind Water, this card is insane because it probably replaces 5 CP Barts in Wind Water because it activates everything. So your water characters and your wind characters. Mono Wind it probably won't replace Barts, but it'll probably be played alongside Barts and Fina, so that you've just got this insanely huge stack of guys that just don't cost as much as they should. And then if Yasmat survives, he gets to just... Like, can you imagine a Yasmat sat next to a Yuri? Like, Yuri getting 2 uses a turn is already ridiculous. If Yasmat's still alive, you have a 10k beta and 4 uses of Yuri, minimum. So it's like, you can't let this live. This has to be Diabolos instantly. Otherwise, if you have a Yasmat and a Yuri out, you've won. It's so hard to get out of. And it's an EX burst to boot that can break 5 CP plus forwards or monsters or activate. Like, none of them are irrelevant. Like, there's never a time when you're not going to use it at least something. At worst, you'll get double Riku mills. And that can win games on its own. So Yasmat is an absolutely stellar card. I don't know how many of it you have room to run, because Wind is pretty tight as it is, but I think you've got to find some room for it somewhere. I'm not a Mono Wind player as of Opus 8. Like, I love Mono Wind Opus 7, but I find it a bit tedious personally. But it's gonna get better. And then you've also got Viera, which is a card that a lot of people are talking about. There's a cycle of these cards where they're 2 CP basically evokers if you want them to be, or if you pay an extra one of their colour into them, you get an additional effect. So Viera, if you pay a wind into it, you get to deal 3,000 damage to all your opponent's forwards, which is probably really powerful. Because you've got, like, I mean, Valifor gets played not just for the 3k damage, but because it activates all of your backups. This is allowing you to build while pushing Mono Water back at the very least, because you're going to kill a Layla and a Viking with it. Unless they already have Waka. But you're also just going to, like, it's just a nice standard unit that you can use. But the only problem I have with it is that Wind's backups are so tight right now. I don't know where you can fit this in. Like, I do think it's good, I just don't know where you can put it. Fat Chocobo is another interesting one. Now, a lot of people love their Chocobo decks. A lot of people. There are a few players I know that will live and die by Chocobo decks. This is a really cool card because it's a job named Chocobo. So that means that Chocobo Knight can search for it and cheat it into play and potentially pull you 1 or 2 cards back, which means the advantage generator, which is what you're realistically playing Chocobos for, could be absolutely stellar. And I think that it's a shame to drop the 5 CP Fat Chocobo because it's so good and it, like, the 2k power buff can be really powerful. But I would like to see how Chocobo players use this card, either this or the 5 CP one. I'm not sure which one people are going to go with. I reckon people ought to experiment with this to begin with and then eventually go back to the 5 CP one, mainly because of the power boost, not because of the search. But I do think this one is worth looking at. And then the last card that I wanted to look at when it came to Wind is going to be Maga Sisters. And actually, sorry, I am going to mention one more after that, I'm lying. But Maga Sisters has so much potential for the future, it's not even funny. It's solid now. But 4 CP 7k makes you go, it's under curve in Wind, not great. But it sends any card from your deck to your break zone. That on its own can be extremely powerful. Right now, it sets up her second, or their second ability, so that you can get a second copy out. It can also set up Phoenix target. It can also set up like Ghost plays or something, or Undead Princess. There's a lot of interactions in the break zone. Kuja, you can send Kujas to your break zone so that they're ready, and he's obviously in X Burst as well. So this is a card that I think is worth watching out for at the very least. And then Deuce, I think the only problem I have with Deuce is that, like, do you run this or do you run the 2 CP win backup because it's a 2 CP win backup for Class 0 cadets? You could even argue to run both because the S ability on the Deuce backup actually isn't terrible if you've got loads to pay for it. But forward you control gain 1000 power and Class 0 cadets gain a second 1000 on top of the 2 CP Moogle that already gives them about 1000. It's pretty powerful for 1 CP, and she's got a body, so turn 2 this could be a really strong play, or even as a late game play, you can just slap this down and suddenly all your guys are big. And you've also got Lease that goes in the deck as well because they're Wind Fire. So your guys are going to get massive. They're going to be difficult to block because of 7. They're high value because of King and Ace. There's a lot to be said for the cadets, and I really hope that they do better than they used to. Now, Earth got some really lovely toys this set. Now, actually, like, this is probably the colour where I've grown the most contention with, but I think Earth actually got the most out of this set. Earth got some really nice picks codes. I think the Vincent is really strong, mainly because it means that we can stop running Opus II Vincent. Opus II Vincent hasn't had its day in the sun for a very long time now, and yet 5 CP Vincent that can search for more Vincent is still useful in FF7 decks. So to have a decent target to search for that Vincent that still fits in that deck really well, and it actually fits in that deck really well, is because you can send all of your EX Burst searcher backups, so your Marlenes, or anything that searches, because your FF7 Fire Earth has so much search in it, it's not even funny. And then you've also got a really half-decent S ability that you can just use, because something that you want to be able to set your opponent back as far as you can, so you could even argue like to run this and then 3 CP Opus 1 Hecatonka as some kind of way to slow your opponent down, because FF7 is a very momentum-based deck. If you can build your own momentum while setting your opponents back, then you might just be able to steamroll them instantly. And to have a full art of this card as a pre-release promo is also really nice. Gabranth is definitely going to get played. On the stream, I said I didn't like Gabranth. I did not at any point say that the card was bad. It is a good card because it can search up some extremely valuable targets. In Earth Wind, which is the first deck that you think of when you look at this, you could search up Veritas, you could search up Canonaut, you could search up Cecil. There's all sorts of things that you can grab with this card. The issue I have with this card is that it's not a particularly good forward. It doesn't do an awful lot. It only gets to a point where it's like high power if you're at 6 damage exactly, which is never a great place to be at unless you already have a Noctis out and you've used it. And then the S ability you're not really going to use, because if I play this card, I'm playing one of it, most likely. The only place that I really like this card is in Fire Earth FF7, because being able to search up Vincent, or Cloud, or Barret, who aren't really 5 CP, I really like. You could also make an argument for Ignis as well, because then you get an EX burst search chain, and they're always nice. And it is still a body, so it's going to be dealing damage. So, like I said, I don't think this card is bad by any means. I think it's a really strong card. I just think that it's a little bit overhyped at the moment, personally. And then, another card I think is a bit overhyped is Baigan. People are saying this is like the second coming of Dadaluma. It's not. It's a really good card. It's not infallible. If something that's important to note is that if Baigan or anything that has a similar effect to him takes damage that would kill him in one shot, so if he takes 7,000 damage, he can't use his second ability to explode in response because he's already dead by the time that he does it. So he can't do that. He is, however, a really strong FF4 character, and one of my favourite cards in the set actually pairs up extremely well with him, and I'll get to him in a bit. But I think that the fact that he can ward off Valor Force, like he takes nothing from a Valor Force, is worthwhile on its own. And I do think that Baigan will see play. This is one of my favourite cards in the set. Sid Garland is actually really, really powerful. So Sid Garland enters the field, it reveals the top 4 cards of your deck, add any Earth character to your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck. That's all fine. It's Baderon for Earth. That's nice. Earth Dull, sacrifice him, choose a category 14 character in your break zone and add it to your hand. The first FF14 character that comes to my mind with this card is Miner. The last thing that Earth needed is more consistency, and it just got some, except instead of, like, you probably run 2 Miner and 1 of this, or even 3 Miner and 1 of this, and then there's actually other backups that you can run at the FF14 side that will actually just keep you going. If you want more details when it comes to Sid, then definitely check the stream link out, because I talk about Sid endlessly in that stream. I think he's one of the best cards in the set, honestly. Mist Dragon is another card that everyone's talking about, and I do like the card. I do think that it's purely defensive. I would not run 3 of this card at any time. I would run 1, maybe 2 of it. 1 in particular I really like, because just there are cards that I really love. 3 CPT, this is a great example of this, where having a copy in your deck will put the fear of God in your opponent enough that they have to question whether they're able to Diabolos your biggest guy or not. That I love. The fact that every option in this card is relevant, and you know, modal spells in any game are really good. We've already seen how good they are in this game. You know, they're just really strong. So being able to have options like 3 cards in 1, just a good card. I just think that like I need something that's more offensive, and I really like having like 2 CP Hecaton, or I like having summons that progress the game. However, a well-timed Mist Dragon can win you the game, so I definitely recommend at least 1 copy of the card in any deck that you play, and it's also nice as a full art as well, so that's good to know. And then Ridio is the last card I'll talk about for Earth, because I think this is the card I'm going to have that's going to cause arguments. Ridio is really silly, like really silly, and I don't like her. When Ridio enters the field, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a non-light or dark summon, and cast it without paying its cost. This is like the biggest high roll card I've ever seen. Like, you are gambling like crazy. Like, you have to run a fair amount of summons to be able to get this off. I need to do the actual percentages and the maths to see how worthwhile this card is. But just the mere concept of casting a Phoenix, a Raiden, a Zeramus, or anything like that for free, and then having a body attached to it at the end, is really powerful. And then having her be able to do it again the following turn, or like if she survives, she can accumulate advantage better than any other card in the game. If you're fortunate enough to be able to do it. The reason I don't like it is because if you've ever seen me play cards or draw on a gacha game or anything like that, I am the unluckiest sod on the planet. Which means that if I play this card, I guarantee you I will not hit a summon off of her. So she is an extraordinary card, and I'm absolutely 100% guaranteed that loads of people will play her, but I don't like her. And I probably won't. I'll probably like begrudgingly run her later on down the line, but she's not the first card that I want to play. Lightning didn't get a huge amount this set, but it got some really interesting toys. So the first card that I'll talk about for Lightning will be Kane. Now, I really don't know where I stand with Kane, to be honest, because he is potentially really strong. He's an 8k guy that can cost 3 that can wipe out your opponent's guy as he comes in. And he's a Dragoon, so he's a search target for a King of Bermesia that's not Estinian, so that's nice as well. However, Lightning has a big thing about I need to be at 5 backups before I can go off. For the sake of Idea, for the sake of Estinian, and for the sake of being able to play its high costing cards. Kain kind of grinds against that by removing one of your backups, but the fact that it can go into the break zone means that there is potential synergy with Lightning for Sawyer from Opus 2, or Argy from Opus 6, I believe, so that you can mitigate his costs slightly. But I'm not sure where I stand with Kain. I think that he probably will see play as a one-off, but I am not the best Lightning player in the world. I will tell you all that hands down. I'm not the person you should be going to for Lightning decks. But I do think that Kain is probably going to see some play, and then he may fall off as time goes on, or he may even get increased. He's one of the ones that I really don't actually know where I stand on. Now, for Sawyer, on the other hand, I think has potential in a lot of decks. If you're running like a Sid Previa-based Lightning deck, I think that for Sawyer is insanely powerful. He comes in, kills a guy, and draws 2 cards. Again, he wants to be in a deck that gets to 5 backups really quickly. Like I said, Lightning has a big thing about it, because then you're just literally plus. You go, discard 1, play for Sawyer, kill a guy, draw 2 cards. That's ridiculous value. However, you want to make sure that you're not running too many 2 CP cards in your deck, so that you're wanting to deal at least 7,000 whenever you play, because you have to obviously choose your target before you draw the cards. I mean, at worst, you're still drawing 2 cards and having a body for it, so he's still really good. And artwork, by the way, love it. I do think that Sawyer will see play. I think that he has potential to be extremely powerful. If you're running enough kind of searcher backups rather than 2 CP backups, he's definitely very good. Sage is probably one of the best cards in the set as well, because it's a 1 CP backup at worst. It's an evoker that can filter cards for summons, which is really nice. So if you're running Lightning and another color, then you can, or Lightning Water and Lightning Earth, seem like they might start to become really cool control decks in this format, and Sage will be a big part of that. I think that he's solid. He's a standard unit. He helps you ramp in a Lightning deck. He's just solid. Now, Bahamut Zero is a weird summon. Now, it reads like it plays extremely well, and in draft, it will win games. Absolutely 100%. The fact that you have to choose an active forward means that your opponent can make it fizzle, which is not cool for a 6 CP card. In very much the same way as playing an Alcid Onion Knight combo, and then your opponent finds a way to dull their character in response. It's not great. But I mean, it's a great out to Ash, for Lightning, and against Mono Water in general, because if you can then suddenly swing in and deal loads and loads of damage, that's going to be great for it. Like, you've got a lot of potential with Bahamut Zero, but I'm not sure how good the card is. Reeve's a card I really like. I really like it because it opens up the potential for an Earth Lightning FF7 deck, because you have the Turks, you have Rufus, Reno, and Rude, and then you have Reeve, who can search for the new Vincent, who can break your Rudes and Renos to make damaging plays out of Rufus. So then you've got the Earth Tifa, Earth Cloud, Light Clouds, and stuff like that. I think that there's potential for an Earth Lightning variant of FF7. I think one of my favourite things about this set in general is how many little hidden gems there are, and that open up entirely new deck archetypes. I think that it's really cool. And then the last card that I wanted to talk about when it came to Lightning is Maya. I don't like this card. I think I really strongly dislike this card, and I can give you 2 reasons for it. And they're sitting on the front of the card. I never appreciate these kind of cards. I think the fact that she's covering her face up to show that off, I think is a little unnecessary, personally, but I'm sure that there are going to be loads and loads of people who love it, and that I'm going to be in the minority. I also don't think it's a particularly great card, unfortunately. I think it has potential, like choosing a category Mobius forward and giving it haste until the end of the turn. There are Mobius, in Lightning Water, giving a Cloud of Darkness haste, because she's a Mobius forward as much as anything else, is kind of nice. Giving First Strike to forwards isn't... She's just a weaker version of Earth Wall. So I just... And if you have the 2 of them out together... Did you really need that? Like, in Earth Lightning, she's a witch, so she can be searched for with Cypher, which is kind of nice. But I think for a legend, I hoped for better. Water is really interesting, this set, because Water got some incredible new toys this set, but it also Everything else got some really interesting new cards to go against water, so I'm really curious as to where water's going to go this set. First card that I want to talk about is Ultros, just because now Ultros is in the game and everybody's happy. He's not amazing. I don't think he's amazing, but as I said earlier, I think that there is potential for an Ice-Water FF6 deck to turn up, and this is a really strong power play for that deck because he's FF6 and he's persistent. So this and Ghost together means you've got two guys that just won't go away, and that's really potentially quite powerful. And when he attacks, deal 2,000 damage and 1,000 more for every Ultros in your break zone. This and a Cloud of Darkness and a Beatrix and Mulberers or something like that. Like, there's potential there for, like, I'm going to sweep the board every time I attack. It might be a bit cute, but it's a cool concept. Idolus is another one that's really cool. Idolus basically makes it so that you can cast certain summons from your break zone at any time. Literally any time. Because it doesn't say that you can only do this during your turn. Like, you can cast a 4 CP Phoenix off of this. You can cast a Cuchulainn off of this when your opponent taps out to do something. You could cast a Famfrit off of this so that they've got only one forward and you've got a Veritas out. If you have a Veritas and an Idolus out, your opponent is suddenly terrified. Because it's like, he doesn't even need a Famfrit in his hand. He can just cast one from his break zone whenever he wants. So that's a very scary prospect. There's a ton of combo potential for Idolus that I think makes him playable. And then Cecil is probably one of my favourite cards in the set, and I don't think he's going to get played. Like, I really like the concept behind him because he can soft lock your opponent. If you have, say, Baigan pairs up with Cecil amazingly, and any kind of Minwu-esque effect, it's going to be practically impossible for you to for your opponent to get rid of your Cecil, apart from just breaking him outright. But again, if you're playing like an Earth-Water FF4 build, you can play Mist Dragon. So therefore, it's even harder to kill him. So if you manage to set up 2 Category 4 forwards other than Cecil, and some sort of way to negate damage that doesn't kill you, Cecil's just going to be poking your opponent for 10k Brave every turn, and your opponent just has to deal with it, whether it likes it or not. And it's just hilarious. I think it's going to be a really fun deck to watch, and a really fun deck to play. I also do think that he's good anyway. He's on curve. He makes it so that Valor 4 does significantly less to you because he can protect one of your other forwards from it. And that he can also protect your Laylas and Vikings from dying. He can protect any forward. Basically, this is, to me, a strict improvement over the Opus I Cecil that redirected things to himself. Because this is on curve. It's got an offensive ability that makes it so that if you do set him up correctly, he could win the game for you. And he also just can make it so that damage is very difficult to deal with. A lot of removal in the game at the moment is damage based, particularly in wind. So Yuri having to negate his ability in order to start board wiping at least means it's going to slow them down. I don't think he's going to get played a huge amount, but I really love him. A card I do think is going to get played a rather huge amount though is this one. Porum is dumb, like really dumb. There's so much potential for this card. Fire Water absolutely loves this card. Your opponent goes to attack you. You cast a 4 CP Phoenix, resurrect a Porum from your break zone, block with the Porum, and put the Phoenix back in your hand. You have a reliable method of warding an attack off every turn that gives you options to do other things. She's an EX Burst as well, which is completely unnecessary. You have an EX Burst Searcher for her in Lenora if you want it. And then, at worst, you can Famfrit her off the board and put the Famfrit back in your hand straight away. That's the worst play you have with her. Porum is undoubtedly going to see play. Absolutely 100%. And the fact that she's going to see play when 4 CP Porum is so good goes to show just how good this card is. Rose is the other card that I want to talk about for Water. I like Rosa. I really like her. I think that first ability is actually a lot stronger than people give it credit because you're taking 1,000 less damage from all sources. So whether it's combat, it means that she's a pseudo kind of Anthem effect. She's a pseudo Waka on top of Waka. She's a pseudo Minwu because she's making it so that certain spells that could kill your guys don't. And she's also quite useful offensively because she can make it so that your Laylas, Vikings, and Porums can attack just by party attacking with her. And then she can attack at the end if she needs to. The S ability as well is, if you're playing Mono Water, she's kind of like a Bart. which is really powerful in that deck, especially, and the fact that she's FF4 and goes with Cecil makes me happy. But I do think that the card has potential, like, to see some play. I'm just not sure if you can make room for her in Mono Water as it is. Like I said, there's a lot of really strong cards in this set that I'm not sure how much play they'll see because of how tight deck space is within the set. I just want to see certain ones get played, and Rosa is one of those cards. And then there's only 4 cards left that I want to talk about, and they are the 2 light and the 2 dark cards in the set. Wall is a card that I absolutely, really want to love more than any card in this set, because if he had come out 2 sets ago, he would be in every deck, or every deck that could play him. The problem is that in a light and dark slot, you are contending with Yuri and Veritas of the Dark. At this point, those 2 cards are the premier light and dark cards, and while nice, he's like, being able to play, like, people sit there and say, oh, he's harder to play. You can't play him in a monocolored deck is the issue. If you're playing him in a dual colored deck with any of those 4 elements, you're going to be able to play Wall. He is a 9k guy for 4, which is nice. That has an effect when he dies. That he, like, whatever kills him is gonna be going. It's something else will go with him because he's 9k. So if something can kill him, it's probably 9k as well, because either that or it's gonna be a mass board wipe like Athena play or something like that. Having Wall be able to take something out with him for a cheaper price than Veritas of the Dark is kind of nice, but as I said, contending with Veritas and Yuri is a really, really high bar, and I'm not sure Wall quite meets it, but I really would like to see this card get played. If you watch the stream link, then you'll see I really want to, like, I go from hating this card to loving this card to hating this card to loving this card to hating it so fast. I go from 0 to 10 and back again so many times just because I really want to like it. This one I don't like. Lock, I just don't think there's any reason for this lock to exist. If you're not running the forward FF6 lock in an FF6 deck, you're now going to run the common backup version because it's better than this. If this lock's ability was at the beginning of your combat phase, I would like it a little more. But for a 4 CP just on curve guy, your opponent has so much time to deal with it before you actually get anything out of it, and you might not even get anything. He has to attack to get the buff, the party buff. Like, I would run Rain before I ran this, because at least Rain is definitely going to open your opponent's board up. He's 3 CP. I personally, he's not, obviously, Lock is more searchable than Rain is, though Rain still has a searcher. I liken this to an inferior version of Rain, basically, which is sad, because I love the artwork. It's Dissidia NT Lock, and it's very pretty, and I just like it. Chaos Mobius is, again, gorgeous artwork. One thing I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but the artwork in this set is so significantly strong compared to all the other sets. I mean, we've had some nice Mobius artwork, but the original artwork we've had in this, the potential for the full arts that we've had in this, there's some really, really nice card art in this set. So, Chaos Mobius, however, like, he's 6 CP in Dark, and not named Veritas of the Dark. He's got a cute interaction with Fire and Ice, like where if you pay Fire and Ice into him, then your opponent's discarding a card from their hand and you're dealing 5k across the board. And I think that, I mean, I didn't mention it, as I said I would at the beginning of the video, but Livia and the Garleans kind of want to be in a Fire, Ice and Lightning deck. So being able to get all 3 effects of this might make him usable, because you also have the 3 CP Ice backup. I'll quickly scroll up and find that. Which is Varys, who is an FF14 backup that adds FF14 forwards to your hand, and if you pay 3 different elements into him, then you can just search for a card and add it to your hand, which is really nice. So maybe they're trying to push like an FF14 tricolour Garlean deck, but I'm not sure how good that deck will actually be. But if it is good, then Chaos maybe goes in that. Other than that, I really don't see any reason to run it over Veritas. And then this is a really interesting card. Emperor Gestal. It's FF6, which is already a good start. When it comes into play, choose a forward your opponent controls and break it. So this has got a backup variant on Veritas of the Dark's effect, which is nice. Dole, put Emperor Gestal into break zone, play a dark forward that costs 5 or less from your hand into the field. So as a Star Sybil, for Dark, that can cheat Camelot into play and search for a second copy of Emperor Gestal. You could also grab Dark Kefka and search for monsters, You could play a Goldes off of this. I like the fact that it breaks itself, because dark backups typically aren't nice unless they're chaos. They're not nice, because they can only dull for dark. So having Emperor Style be able to kind of search for the searcher for itself, it's a little clunky, but I do think that there is going to be a deck that runs this card. I just can't quite figure out what it is. So that's all of the cards from the set. In terms of deck ideas, I actually have a lot more deck ideas for this set than I thought I was going to, because I think this set will surprise a lot of people. When people were starting to reveal cards and people saw Chaos, people saw Wall, people saw certain other cards like Maya, people were very, very underwhelmed by the set, and I'll be honest, I was one of those people too. Like, when I was looking at, like, doing sort of spoilers and stuff for it, I was kind of not all that excited for the set either. But now the set's been revealed, there's a lot of cards that I like in this set. There's a lot of deck ideas I have that I think are really hidden. Like I said, I think that Ice Water FF6 could be a thing. Earth Lightning FF7 could be a thing. Fire Ice FF8 can be a thing. So for anyone who wants a title-based deck, you might be in luck. And Earth Water FF4 as well. You might actually be in luck. There might be some really nice plays for it. So I think that what this set has done is opened up entirely new archetypes and bolstered the decks that we already have. That's exactly what you want from a set. So I'm actually really impressed with it. Oh, Cadets as well. You know, Type 0. I completely forgot Cadets. So let me know in the comments below what you think you would want to build out of the cards that we've seen so far this set. And as I said, if I haven't mentioned a card within this video, then definitely check out the stream link in the description box below, because I go through with a very large number of FFTCG players and talk about every single card in the set. So if you want to check out a card that I haven't mentioned, there's loads in here I like that I haven't spoken about, then go and check that stream link out. So that's going to be it for this video, and a nice little rundown of the things that we can come to expect from Opus 9. As I said, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below, especially my Twitch channel if you want more information on Opus 9, and if you want to come and chill with me and play some Dissidia Opera Omnia, or I've actually been experimenting with some other new games that I've been playing, so I really encourage you to check that out. And then come and join my Discord as well, where we'll be talking about Opus 9, sharing deck ideas, all sorts of stuff where we can come and do stuff like that. And obviously don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share the link out to everybody else you know who wants to get into FFTCG or already plays it. So that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye now.